Welcome to another video. It's me, Cynthia, and in today's video, I want to ask you a couple of questions. The first thing, what is your why for homeschooling? What keeps you motivated on those days when it is so hard? You don't know how things ended up the way they did. Your kids are having tantrums. You have a headache that you don't even know how it got there. It's just there. It's been there for days and days and days. And all the things that can be possibly negative in your situation, you're thinking about on those days when you don't want to do homeschooling. Yet, you push through. That right there. What pushes you? What is your why? What motivates you? And if you don't have it, in today's video I'm going to help you figure that out. And we're also going to talk about some other things that may surprise you along the way. So let's get started. First things first, story time. I wanted to share with you why I got started homeschooling. And I didn't know what I was doing when I first started. I literally got a bunch of workbooks from, I think, Dollar Tree, or it doesn't matter where you get the notebooks from. I got a bunch of workbooks and I threw them on the kitchen table, and I was like, my daughter was in kindergarten and my son was in preschool at the time. And I was like, all right, just open the first page. I didn't review the table of contents. I didn't have a lesson plan. I didn't know what goals I wanted to create for my children. I just thought if you're going to homeschool your kids, that you would just teach them things. And I had no idea what the school was actually teaching my children. So when you don't know you don't have a guideline for yourself, you don't know what they were being taught before. I didn't test them before I started teaching them. I didn't know what they knew, what they didn't know. It was a learning lesson. It was hard. And it worked out very well the first time I did that. So I tried multiple different ways, and then eventually I discovered something that helps me figure out a lot of things. And that goes back to family core values, which is something that I brought up in one of these videos up here. When you find your family core values, it helps you to establish a better environment inside of your homeschool, because then you know exactly what you're going to be going back to every single time. You have those core values, you got it established. If you don't have those, it's not too late to get them. You can still add them to your homeschool, and it will make a huge difference. In this video, I'm going to go over what impacts your homeschool budgeting. And you might be surprised what you see. I think that there's a few things that actually impact the homeschool budgeting, aside from just the curriculum that I know a lot of people emphasize on is the workbooks. I know, there's a lot of workbooks that are involved in this. However, there are other things that do impact what you decide to budget for. And I'm sorry if you see a fly flying around. I've been trying to get it out of this room and it won't get out. But anyway, there are a couple of things that you want to budget for when you are doing homeschooling. And they go back to a few things. Like I mentioned core values before. Your family core values are super, super, super important when you are creating your curriculum. It impacts the type of curriculum that you get, because you don't want to just purchase a curriculum that's outside of your family core values. If your family core values, if it's really super important to you that you have Bible study inside of your core values and some other things that I just cannot think of right now, but whatever is inside of your family core values, if you're looking at a curriculum and it does not have those things inside of it, it is not going to work for your family, no matter how budget friendly it may be. So that is why I say, go back, and I'm gonna keep saying it, but you gotta go back to what's important to you and your family. And then once you have that established, you can figure out, okay, let's look at this curriculum, and you might have a budget of like $2,000 to spend on your family of four, or however many kids you have. However, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, whatever your budget is, you can make it work for homeschooling, whether it's a lot of money or just a couple of $100s. And another thing that's important is having a very clear vision for your homeschool. And having your vision is tied in with your family core values, except it can impact things like the environment that you want to have inside of your family, inside of your homeschool. It can impact the purpose, the mission, how long you want to homeschool. Do you want to homeschool until their 8th grade? Do you want to homeschool all the way until 12th grade? Do you want to just do it for a couple of years and see how it goes? That's okay. Everything's okay. You can do whatever works for you. There's no rule on how long you can or cannot homeschool, unless your state says something, which I don't think a state does say that, but look into your state regulations to find out what the policies are for homeschooling before you even get started to begin with. Now, the fun part, the annual budget for homeschooling. Now this is going to vary based on how many children you have, how many how many of them you're actually homeschooling, versus how many are going to maybe a private school or a public school, or if they're being tutored or vice versa, or whatever might be happening. But the first thing is the academic curriculum. So there's really 4 things that you should be budgeting for when it comes to your annual budget, and that's the academic curriculum, school supplies and teaching supplies, homeschool co-op fees, and field trips. And then some people budget in there for the homeschool convention, which you can or cannot go to. It depends on if it's in your budget. I have no idea how much it costs, but I feel like it's probably up there. I don't know, I could be wrong. If you're close to it, then it's probably not that bad because you can just drive to it instead of having to take a plane and budget for a hotel room and food and everything like that. And if you hear any running around, it is my bearded dragon. I can't get them to stay quiet all the time, and I'm not refilming this right now, so that's just what's happening. I'm sorry. Next, goals for the school year. You need to have goals for your kids to establish some type of a guideline. If you're not sure what type of goals you are supposed to establish, I decided to use the Common Core standards for guidelines, not all of them, but I chose certain standards that I would like for my kid. I agreed with that I thought my child could actually work towards establishing throughout the school year. Working towards throughout the school year. So that's where I got my goals from, as well as some behavior-based goals. So I learned something from someone, I can't remember. If I remember who it is, right now I can't remember, but I will reference it in the description box. Look at the description box and I will say who it's from. But they said something about having goals based on behavior instead of just what you probably would want them to do, like be able to count to 100 by the end of the school year. That's just an example. If you want something that's specific, just base it on behavior and those intentions and feelings that are established with that coincide with that behavior, if that makes sense. So you want the behavior and you want to have positive feelings associated with that. What feelings do you want to have associated with this behavior? And that's how you establish the goals on top. I can make another video going into further detail about that too. I also think it's a great idea if your kid is old enough to establish goals with them instead of just for them. Some kids are able to realize, oh mom, I want to work on this, or I need to make better at this, or something like that. So if your kid's old enough for that, then that's great, and you should definitely have them work with you on creating the goals. So another thing that helped me, I started homeschooling in 2020 during the pandemic, which was a really common time for most people to start homeschooling. And I dipped my kids in and out of school throughout that time because I still was unsure what to do. I didn't know about a lot of different resources that you could find, a lot of free resources, a lot of paid resources, just really helpful content that I can use for homeschooling. So I didn't know about that. So I did find some books that were really helpful along my journey that I wanted to share with you because they might be helpful to you as well. And that first book is The Desire Map, and I'll show a picture of it right up here. The Desire Map, and this book is about creating goals with soul and goals with intentions based on feelings. And I think it's really life-changing, and there literally is like a map on the back that you can help with establishing your goals based on feelings instead of just things that are more not gonna work. I don't know how to explain it right now, but that's one book, The Desire Map. The next book is The Mom Book, and in this book there's a ton of helpful content for moms that either if you just had a baby, if you have toddlers, older children, if you need help with cooking, cleaning, clothing, cleaning, disease, feeding your child, medical and safety concerns, childproofing. There's a lot of information in the book. It's a really hefty book, but I highly suggest it. I will link that down in the description box as well as the other book. And then the last book I have is called Help Your Kids with Math. And in that book, it's really helpful because when I found this book, I was so excited because I decided, at first I was like, well, I'll homeschool my kids until they're in 8th grade, and that's when usually around algebra starts, I think like 7th, 8th grade, and I was like, I don't know if I could do that because I kind of struggled in that area. But when I found this book, I was like, oh, this will be super helpful because it really breaks down how to do algebra and all of the terminology, the concepts, and even from the basics of not just algebra, there's trigonometry, statistics, basic math and numbers, and it introduces pi in there, and there's a lot of things that you can learn for yourself while you're introducing it to your child that will help make it easier for you to teach it to your child. And I will show a picture of that up here as well, and I will link that in the description box below. So if you're new to homeschooling, then I suggest you find your why. Why are you homeschooling? What is the purpose, the mission, the vision for your homeschool? Sit down and write those things out in a way that makes sense for you and your family with your core values. These are the things that I think that you need to budget for while you are doing your homeschool. These are the things I think you need to budget for while you're creating your homeschool environment. And I suggest if you want to homeschool your kids, you can start whenever you want to, but I suggest that you sit down and plan everything and organize things before you just buy workbooks, before you buy anything. Just sit down and organize and plan. And it will make your life so much easier, because I had to do this and I started the hard way. And I don't want you to have to struggle that way, because it's just not fun. It's not fun for anyone, and it's discouraging, and you will probably want to give up if you just start the hard way. So watch this video up here. Don't start homeschooling until you watch this. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until next time.